The Galactic Empire had existed for thousands of years, and its heart was a massive space station floating between twin suns. The council chamber inside was bigger than any city square, filled with banners of alien races and glowing light from crystal ceilings. On this day, the chamber was louder than ever. Hundreds of alien leaders gathered in rows, whispering and hissing as they waited. Something unusual was about to happen. A new species had arrived in the galaxy, and today was the first time they would step into the Empire's center. They were called humans, and almost no one knew what to expect. The whispers filled the air like buzzing insects. Some aliens said humans were weak. Some claimed they were clever tricksters. Others laughed and said they must be simple animals who had stumbled into the stars by accident. But still, everyone had come. Curiosity was stronger than boredom, and even the coldest leaders wanted to see these newcomers with their own eyes. The guards at the great silver doors stood firm, waiting for the signal. A hush spread across the chamber as a horn rang. The Emperor himself was present, seated high on his throne of dark steel. His golden eyes scanned the crowd. When the horn faded, he raised one hand and the doors began to open with a deep metallic groan. Outside the station, far in orbit, a small human fleet drifted in silent formation. Alien captains had seen it on the long-range screens and many laughed. The ships looked simple, flat and gray, like boxes with engines compared to the shining, curved ships of the Empire, yet they held their line with steady discipline. They did not flinch even though they were surrounded by warships 10 times larger. That quiet confidence made some alien commanders uneasy, though they would never admit it aloud inside the chamber. Everyone leaned forward as the first humans appeared. They walked in a straight line, 5 of them, dressed in dark uniforms with a single shining emblem on the chest. Their boots echoed across the polished floor. They did not look down or bow. They walked with shoulders square, eyes sharp, as if the endless alien crowd did not frighten them. The first whispers began again. Alien voices filled with disbelief. "Why do they walk like that?" one muttered. "They are small, their bones look thin." Another hissed. "But look at their eyes," said an older alien with a long snout. "They do not look afraid." The human ambassador, a tall man with gray streaks in his hair, stopped. In the center of the circle, he lifted his chin and looked up at the Emperor without blinking. The silence grew heavy. The Emperor, who was used to species bowing low, found it strange that this one simply stood calm and still. From the upper seats, alien leaders began to snicker. Some laughed openly, others folded their arms, ready to hear weak words. Everyone expected the same thing. Humans would beg. They would plead for protection. They would promise loyalty to the Empire. That was how it always went. A new species entered, bent their knees, and became part of the order. But something in the humans' stance made the moment feel different. The ambassador's eyes scanned the chamber and he saw rows of strange faces, some with scales, some with horns, some with silver fur. He saw the sparkle of weapons held by guards. He saw the glow of banners showing conquered worlds. And still, he did not look nervous. His hand rested loosely behind his back as though he had all the time. In the universe, the Emperor finally spoke. His voice rolled through the air, deep and proud. "Humans," he said slowly, "you stand before the Empire. You come from a small world, a forgotten corner of the stars. Do you come to offer your loyalty?" The question echoed. It was the question every new race was asked, and everyone already believed they knew the answer. But when the human answered, the entire chamber froze. "We come as equals, not as servants," the ambassador said. His voice was clear, simple, and without fear. Gasps filled the air. 1,000 alien leaders leaned forward, eyes widened, mouths opened. No one had ever heard those words spoken inside the council chamber. To stand before the Emperor and say such a thing, it was unthinkable. The Emperor's golden eyes narrowed. For the first time in centuries, someone had spoken without bending. The silence after the words was sharper than any blade. Even the humming of the station seemed to fade away. The ambassador did not move. He simply stood, calm as stone. Behind him, the other humans kept their gaze forward. Their discipline was unnerving. No twitch, no shake, no glance of fear. Alien leaders began whispering again, louder than before. Some muttered that the humans were fools and would be destroyed by sunset. Others whispered in awe. Their voices trembled as they asked if this was bravery or madness. Far above, through the transparent ceiling, the twin suns burned, casting gold light across the chamber floor. The humans stood in that light, shadows stretching long behind them. For a moment, it looked as if they had walked out of fire itself. The Emperor did not speak again. He leaned back in his throne and studied them. His silence was more dangerous than any anger. The crowd could feel the storm that was about to come, and the weight of it pressed down on the chamber, yet still the humans did not bow. They did not beg. They waited, proud and unbroken. Their response had shocked the galaxy, and nothing in the Empire would ever be the same again. The council chamber was still buzzing from the shocking words. Aliens muttered in disbelief. Never before had anyone spoken to the Emperor in such a way. The humans had not begged. They had not bent their knees. Instead, they had called themselves equals. The weight of that defiance still hung heavy in the air. The Emperor's golden eyes glowed brighter as he leaned forward on his throne. His face was calm, but the silence was sharp. Every leader in the chamber knew that this moment could decide the fate of the new species. A single wrong move and the humans would be erased from history. Yet they stood tall. The human ambassador, still unflinching, let the silence drag. He knew the silence itself was a battle. If he shifted his feet or lowered his eyes, it would show weakness, but he did not move. His gaze stayed locked on the Emperor. The Emperor finally broke the silence. His voice was deep and cold. "You are bold, human," he said. "But boldness is often the last act of the doomed." The crowd erupted with cruel laughter, claws clapping against armrests, tails whipping in amusement. Still the human did not falter. He spoke again, his tone even sharper. "We do not fear doom. We fear chains." The laughter stopped just like that. The words struck like a blade across stone. No one laughed now. Instead, whispers spread. Some aliens found the words dangerous. Others found them strangely powerful. The older races, who had seen centuries of conquest, leaned forward with wary eyes. From the balcony above, a group of warlords hissed to one another. "They must be insane. No one talks like this before the Emperor," one growled. Another whispered, "Or they know something we do not." The Emperor's lips curled into the faintest smile, though it held no warmth. "If you are not afraid, then prove it," he said. "Words are wind. Show us strength, if you truly have it." The crowd stirred with excitement. They knew what this meant. The trial of species. It was the Empire's favorite. And whenever a new species resisted, the Empire would throw them into a test, one they could never win. Fleets would be matched against them, warriors unleashed. And when the new race fell, their leaders were dragged back in chains. It was a performance as old as the Empire itself. But the humans did not look surprised. The ambassador only tilted his head slightly, as though he had been expecting this all along. "We will fight," he said calmly. "But we will not fight as slaves. We fight as equals." The chamber shook with roars and shrieks. Some laughed at the madness, some cheered at the bravery, and some, the most dangerous of all, fell silent, studying the humans as though they had seen a spark that could not be ignored. At that moment, the Emperor raised his hand and a great holographic map of space bloomed in the air. Stars glittered like scattered dust, and fleets of ships shimmered. As glowing icons, the crowd gasped as the chosen battleground appeared. It was a barren system at the edge of the Empire, a place filled with asteroid belts and broken moons, perfect for a staged war. Alien warships blinked into view on the map, sleek, powerful, outnumbering the human fleet 10-1. The aliens in the chamber smirked, already imagining the outcome. But when the humans saw the map, they did not flinch. The ambassador gave a small nod as though he was pleased with the choice. This unsettled many. What did the humans know that others did not? As the chamber stirred, an alien general with skin like molten metal leaned over to whisper, "They will be crushed. Their ships are nothing. I have seen the scans. His companion, a scarred veteran, frowned and shook his head. Perhaps, but look at them. They stand too steady. Something is wrong, I feel it. The Emperor's voice thundered again. So be it. Tomorrow the humans will face the trial. If they survive, we will hear their words again. If they die, the galaxy will forget them. The decision was final. The crowd erupted, banners waved, and the chamber filled with a storm of voices. Some cried for blood, some demanded mercy. Others only waited for the spectacle. But through it all, the humans did not move. They stood as still as statues, eyes fixed ahead. Later, in the quiet of their quarters, the humans gathered. The ambassador sat with his officers. They spoke little, for each word carried weight. One officer, a woman with sharp eyes, leaned forward and whispered, "They will come with everything, sir. They will want to break us in one battle." The ambassador nodded slowly. "Yes, and that is why we will not fight their way. We will fight ours." He pressed a button, and a small display lit up, showing the human fleet. Each ship looked ordinary, gray and simple, but hidden deep inside were weapons and tricks no alien had yet seen. Missiles that split into swarms, hulls designed for sudden turns, cloaking fields that shimmered like ghosts. The humans had not shown their full hand, and tomorrow the galaxy would learn the truth. Back in the council chamber, alien leaders whispered late into the night. Some scoffed and planned bets on how fast the humans would fall. Others worried quietly, wondering why the humans looked so calm. A few, the wisest of them all, stared at the stars beyond the glass ceiling and thought, perhaps the galaxy has changed today. And as the twin suns sank behind the black of space the humans prepared, they knew tomorrow would not only decide their fate, but the fate of the entire galaxy. For the first time in centuries, the Empire had been challenged, and it trembled with a fear it did not yet understand. The humans had walked into the Empire, and with a few words, they had shaken the stars. Tomorrow they would show what those words truly meant. The morning of the trial began with silence. Outside the station, space stretched endless and black. Only the faint light of the twin suns cast a pale glow across. The assembled fleets, the alien armada, was already waiting, rows upon rows of warships gleaming like blades of silver and gold. Their weapons hummed, their engines burned with steady power. It was a sight meant to crush the spirit of any challenger, but the humans were not crushed. Their small fleet drifted in calm formation, less than 20 ships against hundreds. Their vessels looked plain and gray, as if built in the shadows of an industrial yard rather than forged in the heart of an empire. No golden armor, no sweeping curves, only straight lines and sharp edges. To the alien generals, they looked like toys compared to the monstrous beauty of the Empire's war machines. Yet the humans held their line with perfect discipline, and that unsettled many who watched. In the council chamber, the battle was broadcast in towering holograms. The Emperor sat high above, his golden eyes unblinking. Around him, the leaders of countless species filled the seats. Their voices hissed, rumbled, and clicked as they mocked. "They are already defeated," one said. "A breath will blow them away." Another whispered, "No, watch closely. They carry themselves like predators." The signal was given and the battle began. The Empire's fleet surged forward like a wave of fire. Cannons lit up the dark with streams of energy. The first barrage cut across space and slammed into the human line. Explosions flashed and smoke trailed into the void. Aliens cheered and clapped, certain it was over in the first minute. But then something strange happened. The human ships did not break. Instead, they shifted with sudden speed, dodging in perfect unison. The blasts had hit only empty space and decoys. Clever holograms flickered and died where the shots had landed. Gasps rippled through the council chamber. The humans had not only survived, they had wasted the Empire's opening strike. The ambassador stood with his arms behind his back, watching the display in silence. He had said nothing since the battle began, but the faintest smile touched his lips when the alien generals cursed in disbelief. The second wave came. This time, the Empire unleashed swarms of fighters, thousands of small darting machines. They moved like a living storm, surrounding the human ships. Their claws and plasma fire tore into the void. The crowd roared again, cheering for the Empire's strength. But once more, the humans answered. In their own way, from their plain gray hulls missiles launched, not many, just a few. The aliens laughed at the weak volley, but then the missiles split, each fragment splitting again until the void was filled with a storm of micro-warheads. The swarms of alien fighters, so confident in their numbers, suddenly found themselves hunted. Explosions bloomed across the dark, one after another, like fireworks in a night sky. The laughter in the chamber died quickly. Some aliens pressed closer to the glowing display, their eyes wide. Impossible, one hissed. They should not have such weapons. Another muttered. How do they hide such firepower inside those dull shells? The Empire's fleet pulled back to regroup, and for the first time in centuries the trial was not going according to script. Still, the aliens had numbers, and numbers had always won. A command rang out across their fleet, and 100 heavy cruisers advanced in perfect formation. They opened fire with devastating beams that split through asteroids and boiled space dust. This was a force no new species could endure. The humans endured. Their ships moved with unnatural precision, weaving between asteroids as if they knew the terrain better than anyone. They darted in and out, striking weak spots, cutting engines, targeting weapons. They never fought head-on. They fought like wolves, circling, biting, vanishing. In the chamber, the crowd erupted in noise. Some shouted in anger, demanding the humans be crushed at once. Others sat silent, unable to look away. One young alien whispered, "They fight as if every ship is alive. Every move connected, as if one mind controls them all." And in a way, it was true. Human crews worked with a unity the aliens did not expect. Each officer trusted the other fully. Each move was calculated, not for glory, but for survival, and survival was a weapon stronger than pride. At one moment, the human flagship darted forward, weaving past fire. It launched a spread of torpedoes toward the largest alien cruiser. The cruiser laughed off the attack, activating its massive shields, but the torpedoes were not aimed at the hull. They were aimed at the engines. Shields protected the body, but not the rear thrusters. The ship shuddered, power flickered, and, in seconds, the mighty cruiser drifted helplessly. The chamber erupted into chaos. Some shouted treachery. Others whispered admiration. The Emperor's face remained unreadable, but his fingers tapped slowly against his throne. The battle dragged on. Aliens expected the humans to tire, to break under the endless wave. Yet each time the Empire struck, the humans answered, not with raw power, but with cunning. They made the larger fleet stumble, again and again, cutting supply ships, disabling weapons, luring enemies into asteroid fields where their size became a weakness. By the third hour, the impossible was clear. The humans had not been destroyed, they had survived. The final act of the battle came suddenly. A small human frigate broke formation and charged straight into the heart of the Empire's fleet. Aliens laughed at the foolishness, certain it was suicide. But at the last second, the frigate released a glowing net of electronic pulses. It spread wide, crashing through the Empire's communication lines. For one heartbeat, the massive fleet of hundreds became blind and deaf. That was all the humans needed. Their ships struck, fast, crippling 3 more cruisers before vanishing back into the asteroids. By the time the Empire's systems recovered, the damage was done. The chamber was silent now. No one laughed. No one cheered. Every eye was fixed on the glowing map, where tiny gray human ships still floated, battered but unbroken. The Emperor rose slowly from his throne. His golden eyes burned brighter than ever. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Empire had been embarrassed before its own council. Yet the humans stood alive. The trial was not over. But the galaxy had already changed. The humans had proven one thing the Empire could not deny. They would not be easy prey. They were something far more dangerous. They were survivors, and survivors always came back for more. The smoke of battle still lingered in space, scattered across the broken moons and shattered asteroids. The trial was supposed to be a display of power, a swift execution of a foolish new species. Yet the humans had turned it into something else. Instead of destruction, the galaxy had seen resistance. Instead of fear, the galaxy had seen defiance. Inside, The council chamber. Silence pressed against the walls. The alien leaders sat in disbelief. Some scowled, some stared with unblinking eyes, and some whispered nervously among themselves. Their voices carried doubt. They should have been destroyed. One hissed. No one has ever lasted this long, another muttered. But there they were, those gray, box-shaped ships, still floating in the dark like stubborn ghosts. The Emperor leaned forward on his throne, his golden eyes burning as he studied the battlefield. His hand rested against his chin. He was not laughing now. He was not angry either. His silence was more dangerous than 1,000 words. For when the Emperor grew silent, it meant he was thinking. On the display, the humans regrouped. Their fleet was damaged, hulls scorched, armor cracked, but their formation was tight. They had taken wounds, yet they moved like a single organism. Each ship guarded another, no one left behind. That unity was something the Empire had not expected. The trial was meant to break them apart, but instead it had shown their strength. An alien commander with scales like dark glass stood. "Your Majesty," he said, "allow me to end this at once. Their tricks are clever, but they are nothing before true power. Give me the order, and I will bring our dreadnoughts." His voice was heavy with arrogance. But even as he spoke, a murmur rose from the chamber. Some leaders were beginning to wonder. What if the humans had more secrets? Waiting? As if in answer, the human fleet revealed its hidden cards. One of their ships, smaller than the rest, powered down as if crippled. The alien fleet saw it as easy prey. A squadron of attack craft darted toward it, weapons primed, but before the first shot landed, the crippled ship came alive. Its hull split open like unfolding wings, and from inside poured a swarm of drones, hundreds of small machines, faster than the eye could track. They tore into the attack craft, weaving like angry hornets. For every drone destroyed, 2 more replaced it. The chamber gasped. Shock rippled through the council. These were not primitive tools. These were weapons no one had seen before. A voice hissed from the back, "How could such a young race design this?" Another whispered, "They hide their strength behind weakness. They let us believe they were fragile." The Emperor's gaze narrowed, his mind turned, measuring, weighing. The humans were not simply reckless, they were calculating. They showed only enough to lure enemies forward. And when the enemy bit, they struck with fangs sharper than anyone imagined. The human ambassador standing in the center of the chamber finally spoke. His words were calm, but they carried across the hall like thunder. "You see us as weak because our ships are not painted in gold. You see us as foolish because we do not bow. But now you see the truth. We are not here to kneel. We are here to survive, and survival makes us strong." The aliens stirred at his words. Some mocked. Survival is not strength. But others remained quiet. They knew survival could outlast empires. Survival could turn prey into predators. On the battlefield, the humans pressed their advantage. Their hidden drones harassed the enemy, while their main ships struck key targets. They never wasted fire on glory kills. They aimed only for engines, weapons, and communication hubs. Piece by piece, the larger fleet stumbled. Each loss, though small, carried weight. For the first time, the Empire was forced to react instead of command. Then something even stranger happened. The human flagship launched a signal pulse. At first, it seemed like nothing, just static. But soon the alien fleet's targeting systems flickered, screens blurred, calculations failed. The humans had unleashed a hidden electronic weapon, disrupting the enemy's technology. The aliens cursed and scrambled. It was as if the humans had reached into their machines and stolen their eyes. The crowd in the chamber grew restless. Some shouted for the trial to end. Others demanded more force be brought. The Emperor raised his hand, silencing all. His golden eyes never left the human fleet. His voice rumbled low. "Enough games. Show me everything you carry." The order went out, and from the shadows of the void, the Empire unleashed its true power. Massive dreadnoughts appeared, their hulls glowing with power fields. These were not ships. They were mountains of steel and fire, Each one could erase cities with a single blast. The chamber erupted with cheers. Certain the humans could not withstand such force, but the humans did not retreat. Their fleet shifted tighter, sharper, moving like a pack of wolves ready to bring down giants. Then, from behind the shattered moons, something stirred. A shape, larger than any human ship, emerged, its hull black as midnight, edges jagged and strange. It had hidden itself inside an asteroid field, cloaked until the perfect moment. Now it drifted into the open, guns glowing, shields humming with raw energy, gasps spread like wildfire through the chamber. They had a dreadnought. Someone cried, "Impossible!" Another shouted. The Emperor leaned forward, his golden eyes sharp. For the first time in ages, his lips curved, not in anger, not in mockery, but in interest. "Ah," he murmured. "So the wolves bear their fangs." The humans had not only survived the trial, they had turned it into something the Empire had never expected. The trial was meant to humiliate, but instead, it had become a revelation. Humanity had revealed their hidden weapons, their hidden unity, their hidden will, and as their dark dreadnought locked its cannons on the Empire's shining giants, every alien in the chamber felt the same chill. The humans were not prey. They were something new, something dangerous, something the Empire did not yet understand. And the galaxy, for the first time in centuries, began to tremble. The battlefield had become a storm of fire and silence. The humans had revealed their hidden dreadnought, a shadow-colored beast of steel and fury. Its cannons glowed with restrained power. Its engines hummed with the deep growl of something built for more than survival. It was built for war. The Empire's fleets, so sure of victory moments ago, now hesitated. The sight of that warship changed the air itself. Inside the council chamber, voices rose in disbelief. Leaders leaned forward, their faces twisted with shock. "This cannot be," one whispered. "They are too young a race. They should not have this technology," another hissed. But there it was, undeniable, floating on the holographic display. The humans had hidden a predator in their midst. The Emperor rose slowly from his throne. His golden eyes narrowed as he studied the human fleet. His silence was sharper than any command. When he finally spoke, the chamber went still. "So," he said softly, "the prey bares its teeth, good. Then let us see how long they can bite." He gestured with one hand, and the command was carried out at once. From the Empire's armada, the dreadnoughts advanced, titans of gleaming steel. Their weapons flared to life, lighting up space like twin suns. Each carried the strength to level continents. Together they were unstoppable, or so the galaxy believed. The human ambassador, still standing at the center of the chamber floor, did not flinch. His eyes were fixed on the display as the war of giants began. He did not smile, did not scowl. He only whispered, "So it begins." The first strike came from the Empire. Beams of pure energy tore across the void, slamming into the human dreadnought's shields. The chamber shook with the force of the explosions. For a moment, the human ship seemed to vanish behind light. And fire. Alien leaders roared in triumph, convinced it was destroyed. But when the light cleared, the human dreadnought still floated, its shields glowing faint but unbroken. Slowly, its massive cannons charged, then released a blast that split the dark like a thunderbolt. One of the Empire's dreadnoughts shuddered. Its armor cracked. The crowd gasped. Some leapt from their seats. "Impossible," they cried. "They cannot match our power." Yet the humans had matched it. The two fleets collided, dreadnought against dreadnought, warships circling like wolves and lions. Explosions bloomed like dying stars. Asteroids shattered under the force. The void itself seemed to tremble, and through it all the humans fought not like conquerors but like survivors. They did not waste fire. They did not chase glory. Each strike was precise, aimed at weak points. Every ship worked in harmony. They moved like a pack, not like individuals, and it gave them strength beyond their numbers. Inside the chamber, the alien leaders were split. Some sneered, demanding the humans be crushed quickly. Others sat in silence, watching with a growing unease. They should not endure this long, one muttered, and yet they do. Another replied. The Emperor's expression remained unreadable, but in his golden eyes a fire grew. For centuries, no new race had stirred his interest. They all came weak, they all came begging. But these humans, they defied him. They resisted. They made him wonder, could this be what the Empire had forgotten? On the battlefield, the Empire unleashed its full might. Wave after wave of ships hurled themselves at the human line. Plasma storms burned, missile fields rained. The humans bent under the weight but did not break. When one ship faltered, another shielded it. When one was struck, the others covered its retreat. Then came the moment that changed everything. One of the Empire's dreadnoughts, a monstrous vessel glowing with golden armor, turned its full fury on the human flagship. Its cannons roared, its beams split the dark. The human ship's shields faltered, and the chamber erupted in cheers. But as the alien dreadnought prepared for the final strike, the human flagship shifted, revealing its true weapon. A pulse of light erupted from its core, blinding sensors across the field. For a heartbeat, every Empire ship froze, blind, deaf. Their systems scrambled, and in that heartbeat, the human dreadnought struck. Its cannons fired in unison, tearing into the alien giant's engines. The dreadnought staggered, its golden glow dimming. Then it exploded, a star dying in silence. The chamber fell silent too. A dreadnought of the Empire, destroyed by a race that was supposed to be weak. The ambassador spoke again, his voice calm but strong. You thought us fragile. You thought us foolish. But we have learned in fire. We have endured what would have killed others, and we endure still. The Emperor's golden eyes locked on him. For a moment, they were the only two in the chamber, predator and predator testing one another. The Emperor's lips curved into a faint smile, dangerous and sharp. Interesting, he said. His voice carried not anger, but a thrill. He had found something new, something worthy. On the battlefield, the war raged on. The humans were battered, their ships scarred, but their will did not break. Their dreadnought, black as midnight, fought with fury. Every strike it unleashed shook the Empire's pride. By the battle's end, both fleets were bloodied. Both sides had lost ships. The void was filled with wreckage, but the humans remained bruised but unbowed. Their fleet still floated, scarred yet alive. The Emperor rose from his throne, the chamber trembling with his presence. His voice thundered across the hall. Enough. Silence fell like a blade. All eyes turned to him. He stared down at the humans, and for the first time he spoke not with command but with curiosity. You have survived what no one else has. You have done what no one else dared. His eyes burned. But now I wonder, will you rise or will you fall when the full weight of the Empire bears down? The humans did not answer. They did not need to. Their survival was already the answer. The trial had changed. It was no longer a show of dominance. It had become something else, something dangerous. The Empire had wanted to test the humans, but instead the humans had tested the Empire. And as the black dreadnought turned its cannons once more toward the shining fleet, the galaxy realized a truth it had long forgotten. The humans had come not to kneel, but to stand, and standing they had shaken the stars. The trial had turned into a war no one expected. The void between the broken moons was littered with wreckage, glowing fragments of ships drifting like dying embers. The Empire's fleet, once a wall of unstoppable power, had cracks. Entire squadrons had been scattered, one dreadnought had fallen, and the shock of that loss still echoed through the council chamber. Yet the battle was far from over. The Empire was not a beast that died easily. When wounded, it roared louder. From the depths of the void, reinforcements poured in, rows of warships gliding into formation, their golden hulls blazing like suns. They came not in dozens, but in hundreds, filling the black with terrible light. The chamber erupted with cheers from those who believed this was the end. The humans will. Drown now, voices cried. No one can stand against such power. But the humans did not flinch. Their battered ships turned as one, scarred hulls still glowing from fire. The great black dreadnought shifted to the front, a shadow facing the golden sea. Its cannons hummed low, steady, like a heartbeat that refused to stop. Inside the council chamber, the emperor rose slowly from his throne. His golden eyes burned like twin stars. His voice was calm, but it carried the weight of thunder. "Now," he said, "the humans will face the true war of the Empire." The order was given, and the storm fell. The Empire's fleet advanced, their beams slicing through space. Plasma storms roared, missiles streaked across the dark. The humans were swallowed in fire. For a moment it seemed they were gone, consumed by the storm. The chamber filled with cheers, claws struck against metal, tails whipped in triumph. But then, through the fire, the humans emerged. Their fleet, though smaller, moved with an unbreakable rhythm. Each ship covered the next, turning what should have been chaos into unity. They twisted through the void, weaving between the enemy's fire, striking where no one expected. They did not meet strength with strength. They met power with precision. A small human frigate darted forward, dodging blasts that should have destroyed. It released a spread of charges that clung to the Empire's largest cruiser. In seconds, the charges detonated, not destroying the cruiser but shutting down its weapons. The giant vessel went silent, drifting uselessly. The chamber gasped. Voices rose in disbelief. "How can they fight like this?" one cried. Another hissed. "They fight as if they have been at war for centuries." And in truth they had. Humanity's history was filled with survival through struggle, war after war, hunger, fire, and endless storms. They had learned not just how to fight but how to endure. And now in the void, that endurance became their greatest weapon. Still, the Empire pressed harder. Their numbers closed in like a tightening noose. The humans were clever, but cleverness could not last forever. Ship by ship, the Empire bled them. Human hulls cracked. Explosions tore into their lines. Every alien in the chamber leaned forward, waiting for the final break, but the humans did not break. When one ship fell, the others closed ranks. When one was crippled, another shielded it. Their unity was unnatural, their will unshaken, even surrounded, even bleeding. They fought on. The human ambassador in the chamber spoke at last. His voice was steady, though the battle on the display was chaos. "You see weakness because we are few," he said. "You see defeat because we are small, but look closer. Every time you think we are finished, we rise again. That is humanity." His words carried through the silence. Even the Emperor did not interrupt. Back in the void, the battle reached its heart. The Empire unleashed its most feared weapon. A super cannon from one of their dreadnoughts charged with blinding light. It aimed at the human dreadnought. The chamber erupted in shouts of triumph, certain this would end it. The beam fired. A pillar of fire brighter than the suns it struck. Space itself seemed to tear. The human dreadnought vanished in the blaze. The chamber roared, but their victory cry died too soon. When the light faded, the black dreadnought still stood. Its armor scorched, shields cracked but alive. And worse, the energy it absorbed was turned back. Its cannons unleashed that stolen fury. A beam of shadow and fire ripped into the Empire's dreadnought, tearing it apart. The giant split open, flames spilling into space. The council chamber fell silent again. Some aliens trembled, their claws gripping stone. For the second time, an Empire dreadnought had fallen. The Emperor's golden eyes narrowed, his lips curved in the faintest smile. It was not anger. It was interest. For the first time in centuries, he was watching a battle that stirred his blood. Still, the humans were not untouched. Their fleet was bleeding. 3 ships gone, others limping. Their dreadnought shield weak. If the Empire pressed long enough, numbers would overwhelm them. Even now, another wave of warships advanced. But the humans fought as if time was their ally, not their enemy. Their strikes grew sharper, faster, their tactics more daring. They lured enemy ships into asteroid fields, turned debris into weapons, and even used the Empire's own disabled vessels as shields. Every trick, every scrap of cunning was brought to bear. The chamber was no longer filled with mockery. It was filled with unease. Leaders shifted in their seats, tails twitched nervously, whispers filled the air. "What if they cannot be broken?" One murmured, What if they rise higher than we can control? The humans were not winning, not yet, but they were surviving, and survival itself was victory against the Empire's storm. The Emperor finally spoke again, his voice quiet, but filled with fire. They endure, he said. Even when the galaxy burns them, they endure. And as the battle raged on, as ships exploded and shadows danced across the stars, one truth became clear to all who watched. The humans were not fighting to conquer. They were not fighting for glory. They were fighting because they refused to fall, and in that refusal they had become something the Empire had not faced in centuries, an enemy that could not be broken. The war of survival had begun, and the galaxy would never forget it. The battlefield had become a graveyard of fire, shattered hulls drifted like broken bones, and the silence of space was filled with the glow of dying engines. Both fleets had suffered, but the humans still stood, scarred yet unyielding. Their gray ships moved like battered wolves, bloodied but unbroken, circling against the golden sea of the Empire's fleet. Inside the council chamber the air was heavy. No one laughed now. The alien leaders who once mocked were silent, their eyes locked on the holographic display, watching the impossible unfold. A young race with only a handful of ships had stood against the greatest fleet in the galaxy, and still refused to die. The Emperor sat upon his throne, his golden eyes fixed on the battle, his lips curved into a smile, thin, sharp, dangerous. "They do not fall," he murmured. His words carried across the chamber like a whisper of thunder. The leaders shifted uneasily, for when the Emperor smiled, it was never simple. Out in the void, the human dreadnought loomed, black as midnight. Its armor scorched and cracked, its cannons hummed low, charging with energy. Around it, the surviving human ships formed a shield wall, broken hulls supporting one another. They looked fragile, like glass on the edge of shattering. Yet every movement carried precision and resolve. The Empire was far from finished. Their reinforcements continued to pour in, golden warships blotting out the stars. The humans were outnumbered 50-1 now, and the council whispered that no species could endure such odds. But the humans had not come to endure quietly. They had come to turn survival into a weapon. The order was given, and the Empire unleashed its final push. A storm of dreadnoughts and cruisers surged forward. Their cannons lit the void with rivers of fire. The humans braced, and the black dreadnought roared to life. Its cannons fired, tearing into the golden wave. The clash was apocalyptic. The void shook with the fury of colliding giants. Asteroids cracked and crumbled under the shockwaves. Stars themselves seemed to flicker. The chamber shook as if the battle outside bled into its very walls. Then, as the storm reached its height, the humans revealed their last gamble. The human dreadnought unleashed a pulse across the void, not of fire, but of silence. A wave of electromagnetic force rippled outward. For a heartbeat, the Empire's fleet froze. Weapons dimmed, engines faltered. The chamber gasped as golden ships, mighty and proud, hung helpless in the dark. The humans moved like hunters. Their smaller ships darted forward, targeting weak points with surgical strikes. Engines were crippled, weapons severed. The Golden Armada stumbled, and for a moment, the impossible was real. The Empire was on. The defensive, but the pulse had its price. The black dreadnought's core dimmed, smoke venting from its sides. Its shields flickered weakly. The humans had risked everything, and now they stood bare against the coming storm. The Empire's systems recovered, and the Golden Fleet surged again. Anger burned in their movements now, a wounded predator fighting back. They descended upon the humans with renewed fury. Their cannons ripped through space, tearing human ships apart. One by one, the gray wolves fell. Inside the chamber, alien leaders cheered again, but their voices trembled. This was no clean victory. This was slaughter mixed with fear, for even as the humans fell, they dragged their enemies down with them. Each death was a bite, each loss, a wound carved into the Empire's pride. Then came the turning point. The black dreadnought, weakened and burning, surged forward into the heart of the Golden Fleet. Alarms blared across the chamber display. Alien leaders shouted in disbelief. "What are they doing? They'll be destroyed." The dreadnought did not retreat. It rammed straight into the formation, guns blazing, its cannons roared, tearing apart cruisers at point-blank range. Explosions erupted all around it. Enemy ships collided in chaos. The humans had turned their flagship into a spear. On the bridge of the dreadnought, human crews worked with grim resolve. Smoke filled the air. Alarms screamed. A captain barked, "Hold the line. Buy them time." Every officer knew the truth. They would not survive, but their sacrifice could turn the tide. In the chamber, silence fell once more. No one mocked now. They watched in awe as the humans, cornered and dying, charged with fury instead of fear. The ambassador's voice broke the silence, calm, steady, filled with iron. "You think strength is power. You think numbers decide the future, but strength is nothing without will, and numbers are nothing against those who refuse to kneel." The dreadnought's core glowed bright. Energy built within. The Empire's ships swarmed it, desperate to end the threat. But before they could, the dreadnought unleashed its final strike. A blast erupted from its core, a wave of energy that tore through the fleet. Golden ships shattered. Shields failed. The void burned as if a star had been born and died in the same moment. When the light faded, the dreadnought was gone, reduced to wreckage. But around it floated the broken remains of the Empire's might. Dozens of ships crippled, destroyed, or scattered. The chamber was silent. Every alien leader stared at the display in disbelief. A young species, barely known, had stood against the most powerful fleet in history, and left scars. The Emperor rose slowly. His golden eyes burned with a fire no one had seen in centuries. His lips curved into a sharp smile, not of triumph, but of excitement. "They burn, brighter than I expected," he said softly. "They fall, yet they rise. They are not prey, they are the storm." The alien leaders shifted uneasily. Some hissed in anger, others whispered in fear, but deep inside, they all felt the same truth. The humans had lost ships, they had lost their dreadnought, but they had not lost their spirit. And spirit, they realized, was more dangerous than fleets. The battle was not over. The humans still stood, fewer now, but unbowed, and in their survival, they had carved a place in the galaxy no one could deny. The council chamber trembled, not from the Emperor's wrath, but from the realization spreading through every heart present. Humanity had done the unthinkable. They had faced the storm, and in doing so, they had become the storm. The turning point had come, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The void was quiet after the storm. Wreckage drifted like silent monuments to the fury that had passed. Broken hulls glowed faintly in the starlight, the remains of golden cruisers and gray frigates. Tangled together, no one could deny the truth now. The humans had not been erased, they had not bent their knee. They had fought the Empire's storm and survived. In the Grand Council chamber, the silence was heavier than iron. The alien leaders sat frozen, eyes fixed on the massive hologram of the battlefield. Not a whisper, not a laugh, not even a hiss broke the air. For the first time in centuries, the trial had not ended in humiliation for the challenger. It had ended in revelation. The humans stood in the center of the chamber, the ambassador still calm, his officers standing like pillars at his side. Their uniforms were torn and scorched from battle, yet their posture never faltered. They carried themselves not as prisoners awaiting judgment, but as victors who had earned respect. The Emperor rose slowly from his throne. His golden eyes blazed brighter than the chamber lights. His presence filled the hall. Every alien bowed, instinctively, but the humans remained upright. That alone sent a ripple of unease through the room. "You have done what no one else has," the Emperor said, his voice low but carrying to every corner. "You have stood against the Empire's fury, and though your fleet bleeds, you endure." He stepped down from his throne, each footstep echoing like a drumbeat. "You are no longer insects to be crushed, no longer children to be dismissed." He stopped before the humans, his towering figure casting a long shadow. The golden eyes locked on the ambassador, sharp as blades. Tell me, human, what do you seek? Power, protection, dominion. The ambassador's voice was calm, but every word carried fire. We seek none of those. We do not want your chains. We do not want your crown. We only want the right to stand, to live, to survive as equals in this galaxy. Gasps filled the chamber. No species had ever dared to demand equality from the Empire. Some alien leaders hissed in outrage. Arrogant, they cried. Fools! But others were silent, their eyes betraying a dangerous thought. Admiration. The Emperor's lips curved into a smile, not of mockery, but of fascination. Equals, he repeated, tasting the word as if it was new to him. His laughter rumbled, low, not cruel, but alive with something the galaxy had not heard in centuries. Respect. Very well, he said at last. You came not to kneel, but to rise. You came not with fear, but with fire. And you have proven that fire burns even against the storm. From this day forward, humanity is no longer a question in the galaxy. Humanity is an answer. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some leaders shouted in rage, some in fear, others in awe. This is madness, one barked. They cannot be treated as equals. Another countered, you saw what they did, they earned it. The debate raged like wildfire, but the humans did not speak. They only stood, silent and steady. The Emperor silenced the room. With a single gesture, his golden gaze swept across the assembly. You fear them because they are new. You hate them because they are different. But you cannot deny what you saw. He pointed toward the hologram, still showing the wreckage of his fleet. They faced death and they lived. That is strength, that is worth. The alien leaders looked at one another, doubt rippling through them. For the first time, the Empire's order had been shaken. The thought that humanity could stand beside them, not beneath them, was no longer impossible. It was real. The ambassador stepped forward, his voice quiet but cutting through the storm. You call us reckless, you call us stubborn, but we are more than that. We are survivors. And survivors do not fade, we do not break, we endure. And in enduring we grow, that is what makes us human. A hush fell over the chamber. The words hung in the air like a challenge and a promise. The Emperor studied the ambassador for a long moment. Then slowly, he extended his hand, massive and dark against the glowing light. Then let us see, human, if your species can endure, not just battle, but history itself. Stand as equals and prove your worth. If you rise, the galaxy will never be the same again. The ambassador clasped the Emperor's hand. The chamber erupted again, voices rising in fury, in fear, in awe. But none of that mattered. In that single gesture, everything had changed. From that day forward, the humans were no longer the forgotten children of a small blue world. They were a force acknowledged by the Empire, a people who had faced the storm and refused to bow. Out in the void, the wreckage drifted in silence, a battlefield that would be remembered for centuries. For it was not just the site of a trial. It was the place where humanity had first declared itself to the stars, and as the black dreadnought's broken hull drifted among the ruins, its shadow stretched long across the void, a reminder to every eye that watched, a whisper carried across the galaxy. The humans had come, the humans had endured, and the humans had claimed their place among the stars, not as servants, not as prey, but as equals, and perhaps in time, as something far greater. For in the fire of that trial, the galaxy had seen a truth it could not forget. Humanity was not the end of the story. It was the beginning of a new one,